Some of the best games don't always get the attention they deserve. Even though they look amazing, play beautifully, and tell incredible stories, many of them didn't sell as well as expected. Today we're going to take a look at some recent games that were truly amazing, but didn't reach as many players as they should have. These are hidden gems that every gamer should know about. So let's jump right into the video. Let's start this list with Hi-Fi Rush. When Hi-Fi Rush surprised and launched in early 2023, it took everyone by storm. Developed by Tango Gameworks and published by Bethesda under Microsoft, it came out of nowhere and quickly became one of the most talked about games of the year. Critics absolutely adored it, giving it super high scores like 90 on Metacritic and praising how fresh, stylish, and joyful it felt. Many called it a standout title, and it even showed up on tons of Best of 2023 lists. Over 3 million people played it, especially since it was available day one on Xbox Game Pass, which let subscribers try it for free with their membership. That helped spread the word fast and got a lot of players jumping in right away. On Steam, it sold around 900,000 copies, and later, when it came to PlayStation 5, it moved about 137,000 units there. But the sad part is that even with all that love and those player numbers, Hi-Fi Rush is often seen as a game that didn't sell well in the traditional sense. Because it launched straight onto Game Pass, many people played it without buying a copy, which meant fewer direct sales. Reports came out saying it didn't meet Microsoft's commercial expectations, even though Xbox leaders initially called it a breakout hit. In 2024, Microsoft made the tough decision to close Tango Gameworks as part of bigger studio shutdowns, and many felt the game's performance played a role. It was critically successful but not profitable enough for a big company. Later reports showed that Tango had even started working on a Hi-Fi Rush sequel before the shutdown, which made the closure even harder to understand. Luckily, later that year, Krafton stepped in and bought the studio and the rights to Hi-Fi Rush, bringing the team back to life with plans for more in the future. In the end, Hi-Fi Rush stands as that classic example of a game bursting with creativity and heart that won over players and reviewers, but struggled with the numbers big publishers look for. It's a reminder of how tricky the gaming industry can be, where something truly special doesn't always translate to massive sales success. If you haven't tried it yet, it's absolutely worth playing for the pure fun and unique vibe it brings. Next we have Hellblade 2. Hellblade 2 is a game that many people admire for its stunning visuals and strong emotional atmosphere. It was released in May 2024 by Ninja Theory, the studio behind the first Hellblade with Microsoft as the publisher. From the very first trailer, it was clear that this game looked special. The graphics feel very real and the world feels alive, like you are truly standing beside Senua. When the game launched, it was available on Xbox Game Pass on day one. That means millions of people with a Game Pass subscription could download and play it right away without buying it full price. This is a smart move for getting the game into many hands quickly, and it worked. In its first month, Hellblade 2 was one of the most played games on Xbox through Game Pass, ranking around 12th in active players. Lots of people jumped in to try it because it was easy to access. On the other hand, when you look at actual copies sold, the traditional way we used to measure if a game did well, the numbers were quite low. In the United States for May 2024, it ranked 37th overall in dollar sales across all platforms and 21st just on Xbox. There was no physical copy at launch, so everything was digital. On Steam, the PC version peaked at only about 4,000 players online at the same time, and estimates put total sales there between 150,000 and 200,000 copies. That's not a huge number compared to many big releases that sell millions fast. The biggest reason for this is Game Pass. Since the game was included in the subscription, many players chose to play it there instead of buying it. The price was also $50, which is cheaper than most $70 AAA games, but the game is shorter. Most players finish it in about 8 to 10 hours, so some people did not feel the need to purchase it when they could play it through Game Pass. The first Hellblade from 2017 had a very different story. It was made by a smaller team with a lower budget and was sold in the traditional way. Over time, it reached more than 1 million players and became a surprise success. The sequel had better technology, bigger production, and more polish, but the gaming world had changed. Subscription services now play a huge role in how people access games. Later, Hellblade 2 received a physical edition through special releases. In 2025, it also launched on PlayStation 5 with an enhanced version which helped it reach more players outside the Xbox ecosystem. Still, the early numbers from 2024 show that it was not a big seller in the old-fashioned way. In the end, Hellblade 2 succeeded in reaching the large audience and received strong praise for its visuals, sound, and emotional storytelling. For Microsoft, having it on Game Pass added value to the service and kept players engaged, but in terms of direct sales, it did not perform at a high level. Even so, Hellblade 2 remains a powerful and unforgettable experience for players who enjoy artistic and emotional games. Next, we have Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. The Lost Crown is one of those games that many people truly loved, but sadly, it did not sell as much as its publisher hoped. The game was released in January 2024 by Ubisoft, and it brought the Prince of Persia series back after a long time in a fresh and exciting way. It was made by Ubisoft Montpellier, the same studio behind the Rayman games. From the beginning, critics praised the game. It received strong review scores, often in the high 80s on review sites. Many people called it one of the best games in its genre in years. The combat feels fast and fun, the level design encourages exploration, and the game includes helpful accessibility options. Players said it felt new but still stayed true to the classic Prince of Persia spirit. The art style looks amazing, the music fits perfectly, and the boss fights really test your skills. However, the sales told a different story. In its first year, the game sold around 1.3 million copies. For a 2D-style action platformer, this would normally be seen as a success. But Ubisoft is a big company with big expectations, and these numbers were not enough for them. In the first few weeks, the game sold only about 300,000 copies and did not rank very high on sales charts. Because of this, Ubisoft made some hard decisions. The main development team was disbanded, and many developers were moved to other projects. Plans for a sequel were cancelled, and future expansions were dropped. This was very disappointing for fans who wanted to see more of this world. There is still some good news. By late 2025, over 3 million people had played the game. This number grew thanks to Ubisoft's subscription service, big discounts and mobile versions that let people try the game more easily. In the end, The Lost Crown stands as a great game that did not reach the commercial success its publisher wanted. Many gamers feel it was underrated and did not get the attention it deserved. Even so, it remains a wonderful experience and a strong return for the series. It shows that a game can still be special and memorable even if it does not become a massive bestseller. Next, we have the first Berserker, Khazan. Khazan is a bold and brutal entry in the Souls-like genre. It feels familiar, but at the same time, it creates its own identity. It is a hardcore action RPG made by Neepal and published by Nexon. The game is based on the famous Dungeon & Fighter universe, which has been very popular in Korea for many years. Before launch, excitement was already high. A demo became very popular, and trailers supervised by the Russo brothers added even more hype. When the game was released, it reached over 32,000 peak players on Steam, which is impressive for a tough single-player action game. It also became one of the bigger new releases on PlayStation that year. Reviews were mostly positive. On Steam, the rating stayed around 84% positive, with players praising the art style, smooth combat, and intense battles. Many fans loved how the game felt challenging but fair. However, the sales story is a bit mixed. Nexon later shared in their earnings report that the game did not meet their expectations. Even though it performed well, they were hoping for bigger global success. Estimates suggest the game sold 600,000 to 700,000 copies on Steam, earning around $30 million in gross revenue on that platform alone. For a difficult, story-focused action game with no massive marketing push, this is still a strong result. But Nexon clearly wanted the game to become a much bigger breakout hit. Even so, the company still called it a success in other ways. It brought new attention to the Dungeon & Fighter universe and proved that this world can work well as a stylish action RPG for global audiences. Nearly a year after launch, the game now has around 700 to 1,000 concurrent players on Steam, which is very normal for a single-player game after the launch period ends. So in the end, the first Berserker, Khazan was not a massive blockbuster. But it also was not a failure. It landed somewhere in the middle. It built a strong fan base, delivered a unique visual style, and offered a tough but rewarding experience that still stands out in the action RPG genre. The Dead Space remake came out in January 2023 as a full rebuild of the classic 2008 survival horror game by Electronic Arts, made by their studio Motive. From the start, this remake felt like something special. Almost everyone who played it loved it. Critics gave it very high scores and praised how amazing it looked on modern consoles and PC. The lighting was darker and more realistic, the controls felt smoother, and the sound design was terrifying in the best way. Every footstep, every scream, and every strange noise made the world feel alive and scary. Even with all these upgrades, the game stayed true to what made the original so loved. At launch, the sales looked strong. The game reached the top of the UK charts and became the second best-selling new game in the US that month, right behind Call of Duty. PlayStation 5 players made up a huge part of those sales in some regions. Across all platforms, the remake sold over 2 million copies for a horror game, which is actually a solid number. But the problem came from expectations. EA was hoping for much bigger results. Reports said they wanted closer to 5 million copies sold. When the game only reached around 2 million, EA viewed it as underperforming. Because of that, plans for a Dead Space 2 remake were dropped. Later, news came out that the franchise was being put on hold, meaning no new games or remakes were planned. This feels disappointing because 2 million sales is not a failure, especially for a horror series that had been quiet for many years. The original Dead Space games sold similar numbers during their time. However, modern remakes cost much more to make, so publishers now expect much higher profits. When compared to huge horror remakes like Resident Evil, which sold millions very quickly, Dead Space simply could not keep up. In the end, the Dead Space remake did not completely fail, but it did not meet EA's high goals. Fans still see it as one of the best video game remakes ever made. It shows how even a great, well-loved game can struggle when business expectations are too high. For now, the series rests, but its legacy still lives on. Next, we have Rise of the Ronin. Rise of the Ronin launched in March 2024 as a big action RPG for the PlayStation 5. It was made by Team Ninja, the studio behind the Nioh games, and published by Sony. Because of Team Ninja's reputation for deep skill-based combat, the game had a lot of hype before release. It promised fast sword fights, different weapons, and a large open world set in old Japan. In 2025, it also came to PC, so even more players could try it. When the game first came out, the sales were a little mixed. In Japan, it sold around 65,000 physical copies in its first week. That was okay, but not huge. Over the next few months, it continued to sell slowly and reached about 126,000 physical copies by the middle of 2024. Worldwide, things looked stronger at first. Koei Tecmo, the company that owns Team Ninja, said the game was selling faster than the Nioh series during its early months, even though it was only on one console at the time. By June 2024, the director of the game even called it Koei Tecmo's best-selling title ever at that point. For a studio known for tough and niche games, that was a big deal. Players who stuck with the game praised its intense combat, weapon variety, and freedom in how you fight. But later, the story became less impressive. The publishers hoped the game could sell around 5 million copies over time. That goal was very ambitious, and it does not look like the game came close to reaching it. By the end of 2024, estimates suggest it sold around 1.3 million copies on PS5. When the PC version launched in 2025, it added more players. On Steam, it reached over 12,000 players online at the same time during its peak. Even so, it likely only added a few 100,000 extra sales. Now, in early 2026, total sales are probably between 1.5 and 2 million copies across all platforms. That is not bad at all. Many good games land in this range and still make a profit, especially ones with hard combat that appeal to a smaller, loyal audience. Fans still speak highly of the game, and some even call it a hidden gem. In the end, Rise of the Ronin found its fans and did well by Team Ninja's usual standards. Still, in the bigger picture, it did not reach the level of success the publishers were aiming for. Today, it often goes on sale, and for players who love challenging combat, it is still worth playing for the action alone. Next, we have South of Midnight. South of Midnight is a game that stands out the moment you see it. The first thing that grabs your attention is the art style. It looks like a handmade stop-motion movie brought to life. The movement feels slightly jerky on purpose. The colors are rich and the whole world feels dreamy and magical. The style is inspired by the American Deep South, with swamps, old towns, foggy forests, and a mysterious storybook feeling. The game is made by Compulsion Games, the same studio behind We Happy Few. You can tell they put a lot of heart into this project. They worked with real artists and musicians to bring in southern folklore, blues music, and that haunting gothic feeling you get from old legends and bayou stories. The world feels alive, strange, and beautiful at the same time. The game launched on April 8, 2025 for PC and Xbox Series X and S. It was also available on Xbox Game Pass from day one. This helped a lot of people try it quickly without buying it. Within a few weeks, the game reached over 1 million players, which is a strong start for a new and creative title like this. Reviews were mostly positive. The game sits around the mid to high 70s on review sites. Critics praised the stunning visuals, the emotional soundtrack filled with blues and folk music, and the way it respectfully uses Southern culture and mythology. Many people described it as a heartfelt and artistic experience that stays with you. However, when it comes to direct sales, the numbers were not very high. On Steam, player counts stayed low and sales were only in the tens of thousands. This is mostly because so many players used Game Pass instead of buying the game. This is common for Xbox games now, where the goal is to reach more players rather than sell huge numbers of copies. Even so, reaching 1 million players so quickly shows that the game found its audience. Many people who love creative and unique games discovered it through Game Pass. Because of this success, the developers later announced that the game will also come to PlayStation 5 and the new Nintendo Switch 2 in spring 2026. In the end, South of Midnight may not be a massive commercial hit, but it is a beautiful and memorable game. Its unique art style, music, and magical world give it a special place among modern action-adventure games. It proves that creativity and soul can still shine, even in a market full of big blockbusters. Banishers' Ghosts of New Eden is one of those games that many players really loved, but sadly it did not sell as well as the studio hoped. It became a hidden gem, praised by critics and fans, but it never reached a big audience. Even today, it feels like one of those great games that quietly disappeared, while bigger titles took all the attention. The game was released in February 2024. It was made by Don't Nod, the studio known for emotional story games like Life is Strange and Vampire. It was published by Focus Entertainment and launched on PlayStation 5, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. The world is one of the strongest parts of the game. Misty trees, broken houses, old colonial villages, and glowing ghost lights make everything feel mysterious and alive. Every area feels carefully designed to pull you deeper into this spooky world. Critics reacted very positively. The game scored high 70s to low 80s on Metacritic, which is a strong result. Reviewers praised the atmosphere, the beautiful world, the emotional storytelling, and the mix of action and role-playing. But even with all that praise, the game did not sell well. Don't Nod later confirmed that sales were far below expectations. The company had to write off about 24 million euros connected to this game and another title, Jusant. Because of this, some future projects were paused, and the studio had to make difficult changes. On Steam, sales estimates show around 230,000 copies sold, with about $7 million in revenue from the base game. That is not terrible for a mid-sized game, but it was not enough to become the success the studio hoped for. Also, one big reason may have been timing. The game launched during a very crowded period with massive AAA releases taking all the spotlight. As a AA game, it did not have the huge marketing power of bigger studios. Many players simply never noticed it. Even so, Banishers' Ghosts of New Eden is a game that deserves more love. For fans of dark fantasy, action RPGs, and story-driven games, this is absolutely worth playing. It may not have sold big, but it is the kind of game that stays in your memory long after the credits roll. Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess is one of those games that feels truly special. It is a fresh and creative game from Capcom that was released in the summer of 2024. It is a single-player game that mixes action and strategy in a way you do not see very often. Everything is wrapped in beautiful Japanese-style visuals that make the game stand out right away. Critics loved it a lot when it launched. On Metacritic, it scored around 80 to 85 depending on the platform, 84 on Xbox Series X, 85 on PC, and 80 on PlayStation 5, with reviewers calling it creative and a breath of fresh air. Many praised how well it combines genres without feeling forced, and the challenging but fair difficulty that makes victories feel earned. Players who tried it often agreed, giving it high user scores and saying it's one of those hidden treasures that sticks with you. That said, when it comes to sales, things didn't go as well as Capcom hoped. The game was available day one on Xbox Game Pass, which helped it reach over 500,000 players pretty quickly after launch, but actual copies sold were much lower. Estimates put Steam sales alone at around 50,000 to 60,000 units, and overall, it fell short of the company's targets. Capcom openly shared in late 2024 that it underperformed, pointing to not enough marketing buzz before release, and perhaps its unique style being a bit too niche for massive mainstream success. It never made it onto Capcom's list of platinum titles that sell over 1 million copies, unlike their bigger hits. In the end, Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess is a perfect example of a game that shines brightly in quality but didn't catch on with huge numbers of buyers. If you enjoy creative gameplay, beautiful worlds inspired by Japanese traditions, and a mix of strategy with action, it's absolutely worth checking out. It's the kind of experience that feels original and memorable even if it flew a little under the radar commercially. Next we have SHINOBI Art of Vengeance. This game is a fresh new take on the classic Sega Ninja series that returned in 2025. If you love fast action and beautiful visuals, this game feels truly special. It is made by Lizard Cube, the same studio behind Streets of Rage 4, and you can see their talent in every scene. The combat is the heart of the game. You use a sharp katana for close fights, throwing weapons for enemies far away, and special ninja arts that let you pull off stylish combos. You can chain attacks together, launch enemies into the air, and move like a true master ninja. There are also upgrades like magical amulets that boost your powers, plus special tools that help you reach new areas or solve puzzles. The boss fights are big, intense, and very exciting, pushing you to use all your skills. Players and critics love the game. It scored very high, around 90 on Metacritic, and Steam reviews were over 90% positive. Many people called it one of the best action platformers in recent years. They praised how it mixes old-school Shinobi style with modern gameplay and polish. But even with all this praise, the game did not become a big sales hit. It was released on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC, but the total sales stayed fairly low. It sold only a few 100,000 copies, which is decent for a revival, but much lower than Streets of Rage 4, which sold millions. In the UK and Japan, physical sales started off okay but dropped quickly. Sega even mentioned that some of their new releases, including this one, did not reach their sales goals. The game also went on sale soon after launch, which shows it needed more support. That is unfortunate because this game is truly amazing. It feels like a love letter to ninja action fans. It may have been overshadowed by bigger games, or maybe it did not get enough marketing. Still, it is absolutely worth playing, especially now that it is often on sale. In the end, sales numbers don't always show how great a game really is. Many of these recent titles had amazing stories, beautiful worlds, and fun gameplay, but they just didn't get the attention they deserved. That doesn't make them bad games, it makes them hidden gems waiting to be discovered. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden gems and gaming recommendations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.